Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is now episode number 5 of the Precursor rebuild, and we're starting on the chassis of the locomotive now. So the whole aim of this day's worth of work is to get the chassis running on air. Now, to get it running on air, I need to manufacture a few parts. This I'm manufacturing at the moment here, as you see in the video, is going to be the nuts that hold on the coupling rods. Now, the internal the internal thread on this is 5/16 Whitworth. I could have just bought some off-the-shelf nuts and done the job, but I want something that's going to look really nice. So what I'm going to go for here is I'm starting with approximately a 1-inch round bar of mild steel, drilling a hole at the middle, tapping it, turning that into a nut. Then from the lathe, I will then go to the milling machine for the next process. But just for now, I am doing the internal thread and parting it off. So I've measured the length of the exposed thread on the coupling rod. So I'm just going to make these all the same. Again, just drilled and tapped in preparation for becoming the final nut. And then just parting it off here using, I'd started with some cutting fluid, now I'm going on to coolant. It was just parting off so much easier. Now what I'm doing is I'm bluing the outside of the nuts. I've made a jig for holding these nuts, so it's just a piece of bar with a hole up the middle and a nut that holds on the new nut. And I'm just using some blue Dicom to mark these all off. So I'm putting a shoulder on them. Then that shoulder is going to be turned back, so it creates basically a built-in flange, almost like having a washer, but I'm turning it into a flanged nut for the purpose of what I need. Also reducing the length of it just a fraction, just to make it visually appealing. Then reducing the outer diameter, as I said earlier, just creating a thinner portion here, because I did a test run on just flattening two sides of it earlier, and it didn't quite look right. So what I'm doing here is I'm wasting it in a little bit, so it looks a bit like a top hat. So I've got a flange, and then I've got a cylindrical area where I will then machine two flats on it to create the nut. Now when I come to put it on the milling machine, I'm going to use this four-sided collet holder here, ER32 collet holder with a suitable size collet in the middle, and then I'm just tightening it up onto the boss that I made. And that boss has got a bolt pressed through it. I can tighten it up, and then I'm just going to reference a single face. So I'm not moving the backwards and forwards on the mill. I can do this all from a repeatable process. So I machine one flat on the side, leaves a nice scalloped radius at the bottom edge of it, and then I can remove the collet block from the vise, flip it 180 degrees, and go again and do exactly the same procedure. And once I've machined the second side here, I can then check it with an appropriately sized spanner. So I think in this instance it was a 5/8 spanner. Make sure it fits perfect, then I can whip it off and get on to the next one. Then once that is done, it go back into the vise on the milling machine, and I counterbore the back of it, because the bottom edge of the crank pin on the wheel isn't threaded. This counterbore here is just to prevent threads running in from to the unthreaded surface. So all four of them got counterbored, makes them run onto the end of the pins a lot better. Then it's a case of popping them on the wheel sets. So I'm just running a tap down the threads. It cleans out anything that's built up in the threads and repairs any threads that might be a little bit bent out of shape before I run a nut onto them. So it's just a quick clean up with a tap, sorry, a die, blow off any shavings, and then I can pop the coupling rod on, a little bit of a wiggle of the wheel to get them on, and then my new nuts go on. And then just crank them down with a spanner. I will come back at a later stage and put pins through these as well. But for now, this is all I'm going to be doing, just tightening them on. Onto the bogie wheel sets now. This is not going to run the original wheel sets in it. It's going to run a wheel set which is actually a smaller diameter than the originals. The originals prevent the bogie from pivoting far enough to enable it to corner, so it's going onto a smaller wheel set. And here I'm just adding springs and getting it all set so that the wheel height is the same throughout, so I can then get it up onto a rolling road and test this. So here I'm just cranking on the suspension, getting all to the right height. One thing I didn't catch on video was me making the nut for holding on the bogie, but I'll hopefully cover that in another video. Then it's a case of up onto the rolling roads. Luckily, because there's no boiler on this, it's not too heavy, so I can get the driving wheels up onto a rolling road, and the bogie goes up onto a fabricated brace, bracket, thing to hold the wheels up at the right height, so the chassis is actually sat flat. And I do come back and measure the chassis to make sure it is flat prior to getting it running on air. So when it comes to running a loco on air for the first time, it generally becomes a bit of a team affair. Get the boss to come and have a look, and get John to come around and have a look, just to make sure we're all on the same page really, and we can spot fault and figure out what needs to happen to make the project go forwards or backwards, whichever way you put the reverser. There's lots of squeaks and knocks and dings and all sorts going on here, so we need to work a little bit on all the flange surfaces and all the gaskets, all the seals, making sure they're all nipped up. There's also a little bit of play in the axle box, predominantly the rear axle boxes, so they will need sorting out. But yeah, all in all, a very positive first test of this, and going forwards it should be nice and easy. I'm going to let you hear the engine running all on its own on the outro, but for now, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.